So I'm really impressed and I'm thankful. So I am a very factual person. So I'm gonna give some facts, and then I'm gonna go back. Okay, so this is my cancer inspired journey. Okay, so in May of 2020, so just a year ago, this month, I went for my annual OBGYN. Sorry guys, it might be TMI for y'all, but so went to that exam, and since I turned 40, I don't know if y'all know this, but I was 40, and then they said you have breast cancer in your family, so they ordered me for my first mammogram. So then in June of 2020, I went for that appointment. So much fun. Cheers to those, right? Then they said 3 days later, they're like, hey, we need you to come back in for a biopsy. And I told a few friends, and they were like, oh, it was just in passing. I wasn't freaked out. I'm like, it's just I just want to see more images, so I said, okay, I'll come back. And then after those 3 days, I said, well, we see some calcifications, and we want you to come back for a biopsy. And does anybody not know what a biopsy is? Please don't feel dumb, because I did not know what that was. Like, okay, I won't explain it then, because it's not pleasant. Okay. But they said, you can come back after your vacation, because we were going to Kentucky. Like, you don't want a big bruise on your boob to go swimming. And they're like, come back later. And I was like, okay. So I went and had fun. Nobody knew. The whole time I was on vacation, I tell people, I'm like, it's fine. It's not a big deal, right? I'm always very optimistic by heart. I'm like Mary Poppins. Like, everything's going to be awesome. Okay. So I went and did my vacation, and then went back for that biopsy. And I got the phone call. I was in the drive-thru at Starbucks, and I had my three kids in the car, and an extra kid in the car. And the doctor's like, what? I was like, oh, I'm in the drive-thru at Starbucks. And he's like, well, do you want to call me back? I was like, no, you can give it to me. Like, go ahead. And he's like, okay, well, you have cancer, but it's the best kind to have. I was like, okay, cool. He's like, it's really, we see this all the time, and and you're gonna be okay, and they're gonna help you. And I'm like, okay. Hang up the phone, right? Like, it was a really short phone call. And I was like, okay. And my kids heard it, right? So it wasn't like, I was like, it's fine. My kids know it's how it is. So that was in July. It was like, I think the day before Addie's birthday or something, maybe the day of the birthday party. It was right then. And so I went to my first appointment. Well, this is the frustrating part. Has anyone ever been frustrated with insurance? Okay, it's ridiculous. Because I know I have cancer, right? And then they want to send me back to the OBGYN who has nothing to do with cancer, because that doctor has to tell me where to go next. So I get to the doctor, to the OBGYN, and they're like, I sat there and waited for 30 minutes for them to say, Kimberly, we don't have authorization to see you today, so you're going to need to come back. Well, I was like, no, I'm not. I'm going to be seen today. And I spent the next 30 minutes on the phone and had my first official meltdown. And Marlene was the lady at my insurance that got me in to see the doctor that day. Because I'm like, y'all, I already know I have cancer. I said that. I said, I already know I have cancer. You need to see me because I need to get on to the next step. And you're going to see me today. And they were like, okay, we're going to see you today. So I figured that out. But I had to sit down, and that's okay. And then, when you have cancer, there's things that you learn. Like, did you know that once you have breast cancer, you get a free bra every 6 months from your insurance? Like, that's so cool, right? Like, they write you a prescription, and you take it somewhere, and you get a free bra, and then they get you, and it's so fun. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's cool. So I can't wait for my next one. But based upon all the information, I was like, I'm going to do a full bilateral mastectomy. Now, I did tons of research. I'm a really big research nut, and so that just meant I would never have to go back for another mammogram. I would not have to do radiation. I would not have to do chemotherapy. I would not have to do all the things. And to me, that seemed like the best option. And so that's the option that I picked. And so that brought a whole bunch of different things. So with that, you then get to pick, do you want implants or do you want tissue reconstruction? And so I picked what I felt in my heart was right for me, which is tissue reconstruction. Well, that's a bigger surgery. It's a lot more complicated, and there's a lot of mix-up. And I get to the office. My surgery is supposed to be November 19th, and they're like, oh, we're sorry. That's actually not going to work because the doctor needs to be in town for a week, and she's going on vacation. So I'm like, okay, great. So what am I going to do? And they said, well, you can go ahead with your mastectomy, and then 20 days later, you can come back for your tissue reconstruction. And I was like, really? Because I want to have 2-3 extra weeks in my journey of one more, like, you're gonna have a surgery. Instead of having all the surgeries in one day, you're having a surgery, and in 3 weeks, and you have no boobs for like 3 weeks, right? Like, I mean, you have it's. I just share a lot, so hopefully you. So 3 weeks later, I was gonna go back, and then but then so November 19th had the first surgery. On December 1st, I got an infection, and the infection came from the drain. Don't push a drain back in. That's a tip for you. I accidentally into drain, and I thought, oh, whoops. No, don't do that, because guess what? There's germs on your body, and then it went up into the drain, and so I got infection. So then I had to go in for a washout, and then when I went into the hospital on December 4th, that means they cut you open and they clean you out. So when I went in for that surgery, I was getting ready to go back, and two of my surgeons come in there and said, oh, guess what? COVID just canceled your next surgery. So you can't have your tissue reconstruction. So instead, we're going to put tissue extenders in, and they're going to hold the space, because if we don't put those in, your skin is going to shrivel up, and you're not going to have your skin for your boobs. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, let's do it. Like, I mean, what do? You're sitting there like, I don't know what else to do. You're the doctor, tell me what to do. So we put these things in, and then guess what? A couple weeks later, the other side gets infected. So I have a second infection, and so then they put this PICC line in. I still have a little tiny dot, but I had a PICC line, and I had antibiotics every day, twice a day for 40 days. And then they started making me sick. So that was super crazy, right? So I had an infection. They cleaned it out on January 12th. And so then they said, okay, now we're waiting. So I don't know if you guys know what tissue expanders are, but they're hard and they're not comfortable. And they've been there since December. And you can't have a surgery right now because I was going to say the pandemic. And so you're just waiting, you're just waiting until the hospital clearances you to go back. So that I finally got a call. I don't know if it's the surgeons are ready. The authorization has been approved. I'm waiting on the hospital. June 24th. So then Okay, so all those are all the facts. That's all. It's crazy. And between August 11th and today, 63 medical appointments and 3 surgeries. I counted them up this morning. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. Okay, lots of medications, you guys, and there was a really horrible day. Don't ever just stop taking medications. I told you right now, we went on a walk, and I was like, I feel like my brain and my mouth, they're not working anymore. So I'm just going to stop these medications. It was a bad day. I couldn't stop crying, all day. And then I was crying, so I couldn't stop crying. And I have 3 kids, and I'm a single mom, and I'm like, I suck, I'm a horrible mom, they're watching me cry. It was a bad day. I laugh about it, but it was literally the worst day of my life. It was bad. Okay. So because of this season, here are a few bullets of amazing things. Others took action. So I have friends that have said, oh my gosh, I didn't get a mammogram. I was supposed to like you, but I didn't do it. I'm like, why? Go get one. It's better to know than to not know, because they can catch it early, and they can't, I did it, they took out lymph nodes, it didn't spread, they got it, it's gone. It's gone. And that's why I'm not an urgent case. They're not scheduling me, because you don't have cancer now. You just have these annoying things in your boobs. So that's okay. For 6 months. Okay. And then I did. It caused me to take action. So I found out I was diagnosed in July, and I had been wanting to run a half marathon. Loretta and I had been planning it, and I was like, dang COVID, because they didn't have any half marathons. And I was like, you know what? I've been running. I'm just going to run one. So I ran my own first half marathon all by myself. My kids were waiting when I got home with signs. Annie, of course, was coordinating that, and they were like, you did it, Mom! And I was like, I did it! It was awesome. So I did have I don't know if I can do it after surgery, so I might as well do it now. Right, okay, so, and then what did I learn? I learned the joy of receiving. Because there were so many people that gave to our family during that time, meals, and just came over and put furniture together, or helped my family in some way. And then my team, they worked harder because they knew I couldn't. I literally was 3 surgeries, back to back to back. And I'm a self-employed entrepreneur. You don't sell some stuff, you don't make some money. And I was a single mom, so my unit knew that. And I remember Elizabeth specifically came out of the cemetery. She was in the cemetery. She's like, oh, what, you need some help? Okay. She was sick. It was awesome. And now she's doing so But because I was weak, one day showed up, right? Like sometimes that's what has to happen. And then I felt urgency, Chris took it crystal clear. And that was hard. Like, I remember getting the diagnosis, and 3 weeks later, I ended a toxic marriage because I was like, I can't take care of this and that and everything. Like, it's just too much. And then working less. I worked less this year because of this, but it's been such an amazing year because of that. I chose to homeschool my kids this year. I know I'm crazy, but you know, with the Zooms, I have a kindergartner. How are you gonna, like, if I'm sick in bed, I can't make sure she gets on Zooms, right? So I was like, I have to homeschool them so that we can do our thing. And we did amazing this year. It's crazy, but we did it. So the whole experience has been one thing after another, managing to do these things. So raising and homeschooling 3 kids, running my house as a single mom, like you said, continuing to fight 22 months in a custody battle and see my kids have favor. It's freaking awesome. It's probably TMI too, but helping a detective arrest my ex-husband for sexual molestation on 18 counts. He's in prison right now. They never got hurt, like praise God. They were not abused. And then of course working as an entrepreneur, which is crazy. And there were days, it still will be, that I allow it to all overwhelm me. I mean, like, truly. Is it okay if I'm, like, totally honest? I think I've been very honest with you. I already said this. It sucks. Like, some of this stuff really sucks. Like, I love to go running. I cannot run. Like, I cannot run like this. And then, like, Addie, she's so stinking cute. She has Down syndrome. And when she wants to sit in my lap, because she weighs 70 pounds anyways, but when she sits in my lap, I'm like, okay, you gotta sit this way, because ouchie, you know, and I tell her, and she's like, woke up one day, and she's like, are you okay? Your boo-boo better? And she's like, kiss my boobie for me right here, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so sweet. Like, she's just amazing. And they are awesome. Okay, so there have been countless reasons to whine and complain and ask God, why me? Why now? Why this? But I refuse to go down that path of doubt and fear, because that's not where I belong. And you guys, I really struggled with this. Like, I told my unit, I said, why on earth would I need to share tonight? Like, my story's wrong. It's just not that remarkable. I don't feel that the journey that I've been on this year is remarkable or extraordinary. I don't feel it at all. So many people have it worse. They've had chemotherapy that causes them to lose their hair or to be very weak and to sink into depression that they may not be able to come out of. And wouldn't their story be better, right? Like, wouldn't they be more equipped to share something? And of course, I'm like, okay, well, that's the voice of the enemy, so recognize it and just move on. So if you know much about me, I'm a word nerd. So I looked up the word cancer today. Never did that before. Have you ever done that before? No one ever probably did. I didn't. So the definition of cancer is a disease caused by an uncontrolled division of abnormal cells in the part of the body. And this is true, one way to define cancer. It's a very scientific way, right? How about this definition? This is another definition. You know how there's like multiples? This is my favorite. A practice or phenomenon perceived to be evil or destructive and hard to contain or eradicate. Notice the word perceived. Perception of reality of life matters more than the things that are happening. I still remember that day when I got the call in the Starbucks drive-thru and I heard those words, cancer. And immediately my thought was, okay, Kimberly, this is part of the journey. This is the part of the journey that God has in store for you. So this experience can grow you into the version of yourself that you need to become, so that maybe your story can bring hope to someone else along her journey. And you see, I've learned that to see all things along my journey is perfect. Certainly not easy, but exactly what's needed. Crazy, hard, and sucky things may be happening around me, but joy, faith, and fortitude is what I choose to create inside me. My perception, my strong mindset, is why I don't perceive cancer to be evil, or destructive, or hard to contain or eradicate. From the beginning, I chose to embrace this chapter as good. I trusted God would use it for good. And call me crazy for thinking the way I do. I tell my kids all the time, we are not normal, and that is good. I think the way I think because of my faith in God and because of the Mary Kay tribe that I get to hang out with all the time, including all the generous and wise mentors along my entrepreneurial journey. It's been 17 years, so there's been a lot of them that I've learned from, and they've impacted me greatly. They've helped me to choose a faith-filled mindset instead of going along with the status quo. Well, I mean, it's true. You allow fear and insecurity. I mean, there's a lot of that happening right now. You're the pandemic and the vaccine. It's crazy. So it's not because of me that I'm an overcomer, but it's because of who is in me and the community that surrounds me. I get my strength from the women around me, like so many of you here. Like so many of you here. You don't even know, like the text messages or, hey, let's go do this, or bringing me food, or just being amazing. Thank you for making me stronger and better. We truly are better together. And I love this quote. It's Wayne Dyer said, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. Maybe there are difficulties in your life right now, some situations that have been sucking the energy right out of you. How can you change your perception to create more joy? And if my cancer was by definition destructive, right? Okay, sure, that's what it means. It means destruction. And it killed anything. It killed off the version of me that I used to be. The woman I was before I survived this chapter. And I love evolving into another version of myself. Through all the challenges we may face in life, like the pandemic, or a divorce, a loss of loved one, or any other traumatic event, right? Like from Ambrosia tonight, we can embrace growth. We can die to the old version of self and begin again. And it's funny, I was writing this morning, and I'm like, man, for the last several months, I've been captivated by the phoenix, right? The phoenix is a long-lived bird associated with Greek mythology and analogs in many cultures. It cyclically regenerates or is otherwise born again. It's associated with the sun. A phoenix obtains a new life by arising from the ashes of destruction. Tomorrow, again, wasn't planned. Tomorrow was the only day that the tattoo artist had for weeks. And then tonight was another, like, what's tomorrow? I'm going to get a tattoo right here on the same side where the cancer was and the same side where they took lymph nodes. And it will serve as a reminder of this regeneration of my spirit. Maya Angelou said it best when she said, I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. Thank you. Woo!